Are you standing in front of the mirror and noticing that your arms seem a little thinner than they used to be? Maybe you're struggling to open that jar of pickles that never gave you trouble before. Or perhaps you found yourself breathing harder after climbing just one flight of stairs. If any of this sounds familiar, you're not alone. What you might be experiencing isn't just the normal aging process. It could be a sign that your muscles are disappearing faster than they should. Today, we're going to explore 3 critical warning signs that your muscle mass is declining more rapidly than normal, and more importantly, what you can do about it before it's too late. These aren't just cosmetic changes we're talking about. This is about your independence, your ability to live the life you've worked so hard to build, and your capacity to enjoy the golden years you've earned. But first, let me share something that might shock you. According to recent research from the National Institute on Aging, adults over 60 can lose up to 3% of their muscle mass every single year if they don't take preventive action. That means by the time you're 70, you could have lost 30% of the muscle you had at 60. By 80, you might have lost half of your muscle mass. Half. Imagine trying to live your life with only half the strength you once had. This isn't just about feeling weak or tired. This level of muscle loss is directly linked to falls, fractures, loss of independence, and even premature death. A landmark study published in the Journal of the American Medical Association followed 4,000 adults over 65 for 8 years. Those who experienced rapid muscle loss were 58% more likely to die during the study period compared to those who maintained their muscle mass. But here's what gives me hope, and what should give you hope too. This isn't inevitable. The human body has a remarkable ability to build and maintain muscle at any age. I've seen 85-year-olds regain strength they thought was gone forever. I've witnessed 70-year-olds become stronger than they were in their 50s. The key is recognizing the warning signs early and taking action before the damage becomes irreversible. Before we dive in, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Drop a comment below and let me know what concerns you most about staying strong as you age. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss vital health information that could change your life. Let me start by telling you about Robert, a 68-year-old retired carpenter who thought he was just getting older. For 40 years, Robert had built houses with his own 2 hands. He could swing a hammer all day, carry lumber upstairs, and work from dawn to dusk without breaking a sweat. His hands were rough and weathered, testament to decades of honest work. His shoulders were broad, his arms strong, and his back straight, despite the years of heavy lifting. But over the past year, something had changed. It started so gradually that Robert almost didn't notice it at first. He'd reach for his coffee mug in the morning and notice his hand trembling slightly. Not a lot, just enough to make him pause and wonder if he was getting enough sleep. Then he began having trouble carrying his groceries from the car. The paper bags that used to feel like nothing suddenly felt heavy, awkward. His wife started offering to help, and for the first time in his life, Robert found himself accepting. The turning point came on a Tuesday morning in March. Robert was sitting in his favorite armchair, the one where he'd read the newspaper every morning for 15 years. But when he tried to get up, something was wrong. His legs felt heavy, unresponsive. He pushed with his arms, trying to leverage himself up, but it took 3 attempts before he could stand. By the time he came to see me, Robert was struggling to get out of his favorite armchair without using his arms to push himself up. "I just figured this was what happens when you get old," Robert told me with a shrug, but I could see the worry in his eyes. My father was the same way. He got weaker as he got older, couldn't do the things he used to do. I figured it was just my turn. But Robert's father had lived in a different time, when people didn't understand what we know now about muscle loss and aging. Robert's father had accepted weakness as inevitable because he didn't know there was another option. What Robert was experiencing wasn't inevitable, it was preventable, and in many cases, reversible. But first we needed to understand exactly what was happening to his body and why it was happening so quickly. The truth is, after age 30, we all begin to lose muscle mass. This process is called sarcopenia, from the Greek words sarx, meaning flesh, and penia, meaning loss. But here's what most people don't realize. The rate at which this happens can vary dramatically from person to person. Some people lose muscle slowly and maintain their strength well into their 80s and 90s. Others experience what doctors call accelerated sarcopenia, muscle loss that happens so quickly it can rob you of your independence in just a few short years. The difference between these two paths often comes down to recognizing the warning signs early and taking action before it's too late. Research shows that the average person loses about 1% of their muscle mass per year after age 30, but some people lose 5% or more per year, especially after age 65. This accelerated loss is what we need to watch for and prevent. The factors that contribute to accelerated muscle loss are complex and interconnected. They include hormonal changes, particularly declining levels of testosterone in men and estrogen in women. They include decreased physical activity, poor nutrition, chronic inflammation, insulin resistance, and reduced protein synthesis. But perhaps most importantly, they include what researchers call disuse atrophy, the rapid loss of muscle that occurs when we stop using our muscles regularly. This is exactly what had happened to Robert. As his job became less physically demanding in his later years, and as small aches and pains made him less inclined to stay active, his muscles began to shrink. The process was so gradual that he didn't notice it until it had progressed significantly. By the time he came to see me, Robert had lost nearly 25% of his muscle mass compared to his peak strength in his 40s. But Robert's story isn't unique. It's happening to millions of people right now, people who think they're just getting older when they're actually experiencing a medical condition that can be treated. The key is recognizing the warning signs before the muscle loss becomes severe enough to impact your quality of life. So let's talk about the first sign that your muscles might be disappearing faster than normal, and why it's so important to catch it early. The first warning sign is something doctors call functional weakness, but I prefer to describe it as the gradual theft of your everyday independence. This isn't about not being able to bench press your body weight or run a marathon. This is about the simple, essential tasks that you've done thousands of times before, suddenly becoming difficult or impossible. Functional weakness manifests differently in different people, but there are common patterns that emerge. It might start with struggling to open jars or bottles that never gave you trouble before. You might find yourself needing to use both hands to pour milk from a gallon jug. You might discover that carrying groceries from the car to the house leaves you winded in a way that it never did before. Let me tell you about Maria, a 72-year-old grandmother who loved to cook for her family. Every Sunday, her children and grandchildren would gather at her house for her famous homemade pasta. The kitchen would fill with the aroma of garlic and herbs, and Maria would orchestrate the entire meal with the precision of a conductor leading an orchestra. She'd roll out pasta dough by hand, lift heavy pots filled with boiling water, and serve a feast that would make any Italian grandmother proud. But over the course of 6 months, Maria noticed something troubling. The heavy pot she used to boil water for pasta became harder and harder to lift. At first, she thought maybe she was just tired, or perhaps the pot was getting heavier somehow. Then she started needing both hands to pour the pasta sauce from the jar. Soon, she was struggling to open the sauce jar at all. Her granddaughter would visit and find Maria standing in the kitchen holding a jar of sauce and looking frustrated. "I used to be able to cook for 12 people without breaking a sweat," Maria told me, tears in her eyes. "Now I can barely make dinner for 2. Last Sunday I had to ask my son to lift the pasta pot for me. I felt so embarrassed, so helpless. I've been cooking for 50 years and now I can't even manage a simple meal." This is functional weakness in action. the gradual erosion of the strength needed for daily activities. But it's not just about cooking or lifting. Functional weakness can affect every aspect of daily life. It might manifest as difficulty getting up from low chairs or toilets, struggling to climb stairs or walk up hills, having trouble carrying groceries or shopping bags, finding it hard to reach items on high shelves, or experiencing fatigue during activities that used to be easy. The medical term for this is activities of daily living impairment, and it's one of the most reliable early indicators that muscle loss is accelerating beyond normal aging. When your muscles can't generate enough force to perform basic tasks, it's your body's way of waving a red flag, telling you that something is seriously wrong. But here's what's particularly insidious about functional weakness. It often develops so gradually that people adapt to it without realizing what's happening. You might start opening jars with a jar opener instead of your hands. You might begin using the handrail on stairs even when you don't feel particularly unsteady. You might find yourself choosing the elevator over the stairs more often, or asking for help carrying groceries that you used to handle easily. These adaptations might seem harmless, even sensible. After all, we're supposed to be practical as we age, right? But each adaptation represents a small surrender of independence, and more importantly, each time you avoid using your muscles, you accelerate their decline. The science behind this is both fascinating and sobering. When you stop challenging your muscles regularly, they begin to atrophy at an accelerated rate. It's a biological principle called use it or lose it, and it applies to muscle tissue more than almost any other part of your body. Every time you choose the easier path, you're essentially telling your muscles they're no longer needed. Dr. Sarah Martinez, a geriatrician at Johns Hopkins who has studied muscle loss in older adults for over 20 years, explains it this way. Muscle fibers are like employees in a company. If you don't give them work to do, they'll eventually be laid off. But unlike a company that can rehire workers, rebuilding muscle becomes exponentially more difficult as we age. The longer you wait to address the problem, the harder it becomes to reverse. This is why functional weakness is such a critical warning sign. It's not just about what you can't do today, it's about what you'll be able to do tomorrow, next month, and next year. Each small loss of function compounds over time, creating a downward spiral that can be difficult to reverse. The process works like this. When you avoid using a muscle because a task has become difficult, that muscle begins to weaken further. As it weakens, the task becomes even more difficult, so you avoid it even more. This creates a cycle of disuse and deterioration that can progress rapidly in older adults. Research from the University of Alabama found that older adults who avoided physical tasks due to perceived difficulty lost muscle mass at a rate that was 60% faster than those who continued to challenge themselves physically. The study followed participants for 3 years and found that those who made accommodations for physical limitations early on experienced significantly greater functional decline by the end of the study period. The most common early signs of functional weakness include difficulty getting up from low chairs or toilets without using your arms for support, struggling to climb stairs or needing to use the handrail for support rather than balance, having trouble carrying groceries or shopping bags that used to be manageable, finding it hard to open jars, bottles, or packages that never gave you trouble before, experiencing fatigue during activities that used to be easy, like making beds or vacuuming, and needing to rest after short walks or light physical activity. But here's the crucial point. These changes aren't inevitable. They're not just a normal part of aging that you have to accept. They're warning signs that you can heed and address before they become more serious. The key is understanding the difference between normal, age-related changes and pathological muscle loss. Normal aging might involve taking a bit longer to complete physical tasks or feeling slightly less strong than you did in your younger years. But functional weakness involves a noticeable decline in your ability to perform tasks that were recently manageable. One way to assess this is through what researchers call the chair-stand test. This simple test involves sitting in a chair with your arms crossed over your chest and seeing how many times you can stand up and sit back down in 30 seconds. If you can do this fewer than 10 times, or if you need to use your arms to push yourself up, it may indicate that you're experiencing functional weakness. Another assessment is the grip strength test. Grip strength is strongly correlated with overall muscle mass and function. If you notice that your grip strength is declining, perhaps you're having trouble opening jars or your handshake feels weaker, this could be an early sign of muscle loss. Robert, the carpenter I mentioned earlier, is a perfect example of how functional weakness can be addressed when caught early. When he first came to see me, he couldn't get out of his chair without using his arms. He'd lost so much leg strength that his quadriceps, the large muscles in the front of his thighs, could no longer generate enough force to lift his body weight. We started with a comprehensive assessment to determine exactly how much muscle mass Robert had lost and which muscle groups were most affected. Using a technique called bioelectrical impedance analysis, we found that Robert had lost 23% of his muscle mass compared to healthy men his age. His leg strength, measured through a series of functional tests, was in the bottom 15th percentile for men his age. But Robert didn't accept this as his new reality. Instead, he started a simple but comprehensive program designed to address his functional weakness. We began with basic resistance exercises that mimicked the movements he was struggling with. Since he had trouble getting out of his chair, we started with supported squats, where he would lower himself into a chair and then stand up with minimal arm support. We also incorporated exercises to strengthen his core muscles, which are crucial for maintaining balance and stability during functional movements. Robert started doing modified planks and seated leg lifts, building the foundational strength he needed to support more challenging exercises. The nutrition component was equally important. We increased Robert's protein intake to 1.4 grams per kilogram of body weight, spreading it evenly throughout the day to optimize muscle protein synthesis. We also made sure he was getting adequate calories to support muscle growth, as many older adults unknowingly undereat, which can accelerate muscle loss. Within 3 months, Robert was getting up from his chair, unassisted. The improvement wasn't just in his leg strength. His overall energy levels had increased, his balance had improved, and his confidence had returned. Within 6 months, he was back to carrying his own groceries and had even started helping his neighbor with yard work. By the end of the year, Robert had regained 15% of the muscle mass he had lost, and more importantly, he had regained his independence. He was stronger at 69 than he had been at 67, proof that muscle loss doesn't have to be a one-way street. The key was recognizing the warning signs early and taking action before the muscle loss became irreversible. But functional weakness is just the first warning sign. The second one is even more subtle, and many people experience it without realizing what it means. This brings us to the second critical warning sign, that your muscles are disappearing faster than normal. And this one might surprise you because it's not something you can see in the mirror or feel in your daily activities. It's something that happens while you sleep, and it's your body's way of telling you that your muscles are in crisis. The second warning sign is what I call the midnight muscle thief, sudden, painful muscle cramps that wake you from sleep. Now, I know what you're thinking. Everyone gets leg cramps sometimes, especially as they get older. And you're right. Occasional muscle cramps are normal and can be caused by dehydration, electrolyte imbalances, or overuse of muscles during the day. But frequent, severe nighttime cramps are often a sign that your muscles are under severe stress from accelerated loss. These aren't just minor discomforts that you can stretch away. These are intense, debilitating cramps that can wake you from deep sleep and leave you limping for hours afterward. Let me introduce you to Dorothy, a 74-year-old retired teacher who came to see me after months of sleepless nights. Dorothy had been a high school English teacher for 35 years, spending her days on her feet, walking between desks, writing on blackboards, and managing energetic teenagers. She was used to being active and had always prided herself on her stamina and strength, but retirement had brought unexpected challenges. Without the natural physical activity that came with teaching, Dorothy had become more sedentary. She spent her days reading, watching television, and pursuing quiet hobbies like knitting and gardening. While she enjoyed this peaceful phase of life, she began experiencing something that disrupted her tranquility in the most painful way possible. Every night, around 2 or 3 in the morning, I wake up screaming, she told me, her voice shaking slightly at the memory. The pain in my calves is so intense that I literally fall out of bed. My husband has to help me walk it off. Sometimes the cramp is so severe that I can't even straighten my leg. I'll be limping around the house for the rest of the night, and sometimes the soreness lasts until the next afternoon. Dorothy's cramps weren't just uncomfortable, they were debilitating. She'd wake up with her calf muscle locked in such a tight spasm that she couldn't move her foot. The pain was so severe that she'd sometimes cry out loud, waking her husband and frightening them both. She described the sensation as feeling like her muscle was being torn apart from the inside, like someone was wrapping a steel cable around her calf and tightening it with a wrench. But what Dorothy didn't realize was that these cramps were her body's way of telling her that her muscles were in crisis. They weren't just random painful episodes, they were symptoms of a much larger problem. Here's what happens when muscle loss accelerates beyond normal aging. The remaining muscle fibers have to work harder to compensate for the ones that have been lost. This increased workload, combined with changes in blood flow and nerve function that come with aging, creates the perfect storm for muscle cramps. When you lose muscle mass, several things happen simultaneously. First, the remaining muscle fibers have to generate more force to accomplish the same tasks. This is like asking a smaller workforce to do the same amount of work. Eventually, they become overworked and prone to malfunction. Second, muscle loss affects the body's ability to regulate electrolytes, minerals like potassium, magnesium, and calcium that are essential for proper muscle function. Muscle tissue acts as a reservoir for these minerals, and when muscle mass decreases, the body's ability to maintain proper electrolyte balance becomes compromised. Third, aging and muscle loss can affect the nervous system's ability to control muscle contractions. The nerve signals that tell muscles when to contract and when to relax can become less precise, leading to involuntary contractions that we experience as cramps. But there's more to it than that. When muscle mass decreases rapidly, it affects the body's ability to regulate electrolytes, minerals like potassium, magnesium, and calcium that are essential for proper muscle function. As muscle tissue shrinks, these minerals become imbalanced, making the remaining muscles more prone to sudden, painful contractions. Dr. Michael Chen, a sleep specialist and muscle health researcher at the Mayo Clinic, explains, nighttime muscle cramps in older adults are often the canary in the coal mine. They're telling us that the muscle tissue is under stress and that the body's ability to maintain proper muscle function is breaking down. When we see patients with frequent nocturnal cramps, we know we need to look deeper at their overall muscle health. The reason these cramps happen at night is particularly telling. During sleep, our muscles are supposed to be at their most relaxed state. Blood flow slows down, nerve activity decreases, and the muscles should be able to rest and recover from the day's activities. But when muscle loss is accelerated, even this resting state becomes problematic. The weakened muscles can't maintain proper tone, leading to sudden, involuntary contractions. It's as if the muscle is so depleted that it can't even relax properly. The cramp is actually the muscle's desperate attempt to maintain some semblance of normal function. Additionally, the position we sleep in can contribute to nighttime cramps when muscle loss is present. When we lie in bed for hours with our feet pointed downward, our calf muscles are in a shortened position. In healthy muscles, this isn't a problem, but in muscles that are already weakened and struggling to function properly, this prolonged, shortened position can trigger painful spasms. Dorothy's case is typical of what I see in patients with accelerated muscle loss. The cramps started gradually, maybe once a week, then twice a week, then almost every night. Each cramp was a little more severe than the last, and the recovery time got longer and longer. What started as a minor annoyance became a major disruption to her life. The first cramp Dorothy experienced was about 6 months before she came to see me. She woke up with a sharp pain in her right calf, stretched it out, and went back to sleep. She thought maybe she had slept in an awkward position or had been dehydrated, but the cramps kept coming, and they kept getting worse. By the time she sought help, Dorothy was experiencing cramps almost every night. They weren't limited to her calves anymore. She was getting cramps in her thighs, her feet, and even her hands. The pain was so severe that she began to dread going to bed, knowing that she would likely be woken up by excruciating pain. But here's what's particularly insidious about nighttime muscle cramps. They create a vicious cycle. The pain disrupts sleep, and poor sleep quality accelerates muscle loss. When you don't get enough deep, restorative sleep, your body can't produce adequate amounts of growth hormone, which is essential for muscle repair and maintenance. Growth hormone is released in pulses during the deepest stages of sleep, particularly during what's called slow-wave sleep. This hormone is crucial for muscle protein synthesis, the process by which your body builds and repairs muscle tissue. If you're being woken up by muscle cramps several times a night, you're not getting enough of this crucial hormone. This means your muscles can't recover properly from daily activities, leading to even more muscle loss and, inevitably, more cramps. It's a downward spiral that can be difficult to break without intervention. The research on this connection is compelling. A study published in the Journal of Sleep Research found that adults who experienced frequent nighttime muscle cramps lost muscle mass at a rate that was 40% faster than those who slept through the night without cramping. The study followed participants for 2 years and found that those with regular cramps had significantly lower muscle mass and strength by the end of the study period. But the connection between nighttime cramps and muscle loss goes beyond just sleep disruption. The cramps themselves can cause microscopic damage to muscle fibers. When a muscle contracts violently during a cramp, it can create tiny tears in the muscle tissue. Normally, this damage would be repaired during the recovery process. But in older adults with accelerated muscle loss, the repair process is often inadequate. This creates a situation where the muscle is constantly being damaged by cramps, but can't repair itself effectively. Over time, this leads to a net loss of muscle tissue, further accelerating the decline in strength and function. The inflammatory response that follows muscle damage from cramps can also contribute to muscle loss. When muscle tissue is damaged, the body's immune system responds by sending inflammatory cells to the area. While this inflammation is necessary for healing, chronic inflammation can actually break down muscle tissue and interfere with muscle protein synthesis. The most concerning aspect of nighttime muscle cramps as a warning sign is that they often indicate that muscle loss has already progressed significantly. By the time you're experiencing regular severe cramps, you've likely already lost a substantial amount of muscle mass. This is why it's so important to recognize this warning sign early and take action immediately. Dorothy's case illustrates this perfectly. When we assessed her muscle mass using advanced imaging techniques, we found that she'd lost 28% of her muscle mass compared to healthy women her age. Her leg muscles, in particular, had deteriorated significantly, which explained why her calf cramps were so severe and frequent. But Dorothy's story has a happy ending, though it required significant intervention. We started her on a comprehensive program that included targeted exercises to strengthen her calf muscles, nutritional support to address electrolyte imbalances, and sleep hygiene improvements to help her get better rest. The exercise component focused on both strengthening and stretching her calf muscles. We started with gentle calf raises and progresses to more challenging exercises as her strength improved. We also incorporated stretching routines that she could do before bed to help prevent the muscle shortening that can trigger cramps. The nutritional intervention was crucial. We increased her magnesium intake through both dietary sources and supplements, as magnesium deficiency is strongly linked to muscle cramps. We also optimized her potassium and calcium intake and made sure she was staying properly hydrated throughout the day. We also worked on improving her overall muscle mass through resistance training. Dorothy started with basic exercises using resistance bands and gradually progressed to more challenging movements as her strength improved. Within 2 months, Dorothy's cramps decreased from every night to just once or twice a week. The cramps that did occur were less severe and didn't last as long. Within 6 months, she was sleeping through the night most nights, and the occasional cramp she experienced was mild and easily managed. Most importantly, within a year, Dorothy had regained most of the muscle mass she had lost. Her legs were stronger, her balance had improved, and she had returned to many of the activities she had given up due to fear of triggering cramps. The key was recognizing that the cramps weren't just a normal part of aging, they were a warning sign that required immediate attention. But nighttime cramps aren't the only subtle warning sign of accelerated muscle loss. The third sign is perhaps the most insidious, because it affects not just your physical strength, but your entire energy system. This brings us to the third and perhaps most subtle warning sign of accelerated muscle loss, one that many people dismiss as just another sign of getting older. But this sign might be the most important one of all, because it indicates that muscle loss is affecting not just your strength, but your entire metabolic system. The third warning sign is what I call the energy paradox, feeling increasingly tired and weak, even though you're doing less physical activity than ever before. This might seem counterintuitive. After all, shouldn't you have more energy if you're not working as hard? But when muscle loss accelerates beyond normal aging, your entire energy system becomes compromised. This is perhaps the most misunderstood and overlooked warning sign of accelerated muscle loss. Many people experience this crushing fatigue and assume it's just a normal part of aging, or perhaps a sign of depression or other psychological issues. But in reality, it's often a direct result of the metabolic changes that occur when muscle mass declines rapidly. Let me tell you about James, a 71-year-old retired accountant who came to see me because he was concerned about his energy levels. James had always been a high-energy person. During his working years, he would arrive at the office at 7 a.m. and often work until 7 or 8 p.m. He'd come home and still have energy to help his wife with dinner, play with his grandchildren, and work on home improvement projects on weekends. I used to work 12-hour days and still have energy to help my wife with dinner and play with my grandchildren, he told me during our first meeting. Now I take a nap after checking my email, and I'm exhausted by lunchtime. I'm not doing anything strenuous, so why am I so tired all the time? James's confusion is understandable. On the surface, his life had become easier. He wasn't dealing with work stress, he had more time to rest, and he wasn't engaging in physically demanding activities. He was sleeping 8 hours a night, eating regular meals, and had no obvious health problems that would explain his fatigue. But what James didn't understand was that his muscles weren't just responsible for movement. They were also his body's primary energy-burning powerhouses. And when muscle mass declines rapidly, it affects every aspect of your body's energy production and utilization. Muscle tissue is metabolically active, meaning it burns calories even when you're at rest. In fact, muscle tissue burns about 3 times more calories per pound than fat tissue. This means that every pound of muscle you lose results in a significant decrease in your metabolic rate, the number of calories your body burns just to maintain basic functions like breathing, circulation, and cellular repair. When you lose muscle mass, your metabolic rate decreases proportionally. This creates a domino effect throughout your entire system. With a slower metabolism, your body becomes less efficient at converting food into energy. Your cells don't get the fuel they need to function properly, leaving you feeling tired and sluggish even when you're not doing anything physically demanding. But the energy paradox goes beyond just a slower metabolism. Muscle tissue plays a crucial role in blood sugar regulation. When you eat carbohydrates, your muscles act like a sponge, absorbing glucose from your bloodstream and either using it for immediate energy or storing it for later use. When you lose muscle mass, your body loses this glucose-absorbing capacity, leading to less stable blood sugar levels. This blood sugar instability can cause energy crashes throughout the day. You might feel energetic right after eating, but then experience a significant drop in energy an hour or two later. This roller coaster of energy levels can leave you feeling drained and exhausted, even when you haven't done anything physically demanding. Dr. Lisa Rodriguez, an endocrinologist who specializes in age-related metabolic changes, explains, when people lose muscle mass rapidly, they often experience what we call metabolic dysregulation. Their bodies simply can't maintain the same level of energy production they once could. It's like trying to run a car engine with a smaller and smaller fuel tank, but also with an engine that's becoming less efficient at burning fuel. The cardiovascular system is also affected by muscle loss. Your muscles act as a secondary pump for your circulatory system, helping to push blood back to your heart as they contract and relax during daily activities. When muscle mass decreases, your heart has to work harder to maintain adequate circulation, which can contribute to fatigue. Additionally, muscle tissue is rich in mitochondria, the cellular powerhouses that produce energy. When you lose muscle mass, you're also losing these energy-producing factories. This means your body has less capacity to produce the ATP, adenosine triphosphate, that powers all cellular functions. But there's another layer to this energy paradox that's particularly insidious. When you feel tired all the time, your natural response is to rest more and move less. This seems logical. If you're tired, you should conserve energy, right? But in the context of muscle loss, this response actually makes the problem worse. The less you move, the more muscle you lose. The more muscle you lose, the more tired you feel. The more tired you feel, the less you move. It's a vicious cycle that can quickly spiral out of control, leading to what geriatricians call the deconditioning cascade. This cascade can progress rapidly in older adults. Research shows that bed rest for just 1 week can result in a 20% loss of muscle strength in adults over 60. Even reducing activity levels without complete bed rest can lead to significant muscle loss in a matter of weeks. James had fallen into this exact trap. As his energy levels decreased, he began cancelling his daily walks with his wife. He started taking elevators instead of stairs, even for just 1 or 2 floors. He began asking his wife to handle tasks that required any physical effort, like carrying laundry upstairs or bringing groceries in from the car. Each of these choices seemed reasonable in the moment. He was tired, so he should rest. But collectively, they were accelerating his muscle loss and making his fatigue worse. The less he moved, the more muscle he lost. The more muscle he lost, the more tired he became. When James came to see me, he was napping twice a day and still feeling exhausted. He was going to bed at 9 p.m. and sleeping until 8 a.m., but waking up feeling like he hadn't slept at all. He described feeling like he was running on fumes, even though he wasn't doing anything particularly demanding. The research on this phenomenon is sobering. A study published in the Journal of Gerontology followed 1,200 adults over age 65 for 5 years. The researchers found that those who experienced significant fatigue without an obvious medical cause lost muscle mass at a rate that was 3 times faster than those who maintained their energy levels. Another study from the Harvard School of Public Health found that adults over 70 who reported feeling tired most days of the week had a 45% higher risk of developing severe muscle loss over a 4-year period compared to those who maintained their energy levels. But here's what's particularly concerning about the energy paradox. It's often dismissed by both patients and healthcare providers as just a normal part of aging. How many times have you heard someone say, or maybe even said yourself, "Well, I'm not 20 anymore, of course I'm more tired." This dismissive attitude is dangerous because it prevents people from seeking help when they could still reverse the process. The energy paradox is often one of the earliest signs of accelerated muscle loss, appearing months or even years before functional weakness becomes apparent. The key is understanding the difference between normal age-related changes in energy and the pathological fatigue that comes with rapid muscle loss. Normal aging might involve getting tired after a long day of activities or needing a bit more sleep than you used to. You might notice that you don't have quite the same stamina you had in your younger years, but you should still be able to enjoy activities and maintain your independence. But the energy paradox involves feeling exhausted after minimal exertion, needing frequent naps during the day, having difficulty concentrating due to fatigue, feeling like you're running on empty even after a good night's sleep, and experiencing energy crashes that seem disproportionate to your activity level. James's case illustrates this perfectly. When he first came to see me, he was experiencing all of these symptoms. He would feel tired after simple activities like sorting mail or reading the newspaper. He needed to nap in the middle of the day just to function. And even then, he would wake up from naps feeling groggy and disoriented. We ran comprehensive tests to rule out other causes of fatigue: thyroid problems, anemia, sleep disorders, depression, diabetes, and heart disease. But everything came back normal. His blood work was fine, his heart was healthy, and he showed no signs of depression or other psychological issues. That's when we focused on his muscle mass and metabolic function. What we found was alarming. James had lost nearly 20% of his muscle mass over the previous 3 years, and his metabolic rate had dropped by almost 300 calories per day. This might not sound like much, but it's the equivalent of running a 3-mile deficit every single day. His body was essentially starving for energy, even though he was eating adequate calories. The problem wasn't with his food intake, it was with his body's ability to use that food effectively. To put this in perspective, a 300-calorie decrease in metabolic rate is significant. It's like losing the energy equivalent of a 45-minute brisk walk every day without actually walking anywhere. This means James's body was producing 300 fewer calories worth of energy each day, even though his caloric needs remained the same. No wonder he felt exhausted all the time. The muscle loss had affected multiple systems in James's body. His ability to regulate blood sugar had decreased, leading to energy spikes and crashes throughout the day. His cardiovascular efficiency had declined, making his heart work harder to pump blood through his body. His cellular energy production had diminished due to the loss of muscle mitochondria, and his overall metabolic flexibility, his body's ability to switch between different fuel sources, had become impaired. But perhaps most importantly, the muscle loss had triggered a hormonal cascade that was perpetuating his fatigue. When muscle mass decreases, it affects the production and sensitivity of several key hormones, including insulin, growth hormone, and even thyroid hormones. These hormonal changes can create a state of chronic fatigue that persists even when you're getting adequate rest. The insulin resistance that often accompanies muscle loss is particularly problematic. When your muscles can't absorb glucose effectively, your body has to produce more insulin to maintain normal blood sugar levels. This chronic state of elevated insulin can lead to fatigue, as well as increased fat storage and further muscle loss. Growth hormone levels also decline when muscle mass decreases. This hormone is crucial for energy production, muscle maintenance, and overall vitality. Lower growth hormone levels can contribute to fatigue, reduced exercise capacity, and accelerated aging. Even thyroid function can be affected by muscle loss. The thyroid hormones that regulate metabolism rely partly on muscle tissue to exert their effects. When muscle mass decreases, thyroid hormones become less effective, leading to a functional hypothyroid state, even when blood tests show normal thyroid hormone levels. The solution for James required a comprehensive approach that addressed both the muscle loss and the metabolic dysfunction. We started him on a structured exercise program that included both resistance training to rebuild muscle mass and cardiovascular exercise to improve his metabolic efficiency. The resistance training component was crucial. We began with simple exercises using light weights and resistance bands, focusing on the major muscle groups that had shown the most significant loss. The goal wasn't to turn James into a bodybuilder, but to provide enough stimulus to halt the muscle loss and begin rebuilding what had been lost. We also incorporated cardiovascular exercise, but in a way that would support rather than compete with muscle building. Short periods of moderate intensity activity, like brisk walking or stationary cycling, helped improve James's cardiovascular efficiency and metabolic flexibility without causing the excessive fatigue that can interfere with muscle growth. The nutritional component was equally important. We worked with a nutritionist to optimize James's protein intake, ensuring he was getting enough high-quality protein to support muscle protein synthesis. We also focused on meal timing, spreading his protein intake throughout the day to maximize its muscle-building effects. We paid particular attention to his post-exercise nutrition, making sure he had adequate protein and carbohydrates available when his muscles were most receptive to growth signals. This often meant having a protein-rich snack within 30 minutes of finishing his workout. We also addressed micronutrient deficiencies that could be contributing to his fatigue. Many older adults are deficient in vitamins and minerals that are crucial for energy production, including vitamin D, B vitamins, magnesium, and iron. We optimize these levels through both dietary changes and targeted supplementation. Sleep quality was another crucial factor. Even though James was sleeping 8 hours a night, the quality of his sleep had deteriorated. We worked on sleep hygiene practices that would help him achieve deeper, more restorative sleep. This included maintaining a consistent sleep schedule, creating a cool, dark sleeping environment, and avoiding screens before bedtime. We also addressed stress management, as chronic stress can accelerate muscle loss and contribute to fatigue. James had been dealing with the stress of retirement, concerns about his health, and worry about his declining energy levels. We incorporated relaxation techniques and stress management strategies into his daily routine. The results were dramatic, but they didn't happen overnight. Within the first month, James reported feeling more energetic in the mornings. He was no longer waking up feeling like he had been hit by a truck. Within 3 months, he had eliminated his afternoon naps and was sleeping better at night. The improvement in his energy levels motivated him to become more active in other areas of his life. He started taking walks with his wife again, began working on small home improvement projects, and even started volunteering at his local library. Each increase in activity created a positive feedback loop, helping him build more muscle and feel even more energetic. Within 6 months, James had regained about half of the muscle mass he had lost, and his metabolic rate had increased by nearly 200 calories per day. More importantly, he felt like himself again. He had energy for the activities he enjoyed, he was sleeping well, and he was optimistic about his future. By the end of the year, James was stronger than he had been in 5 years. He had not only stopped the muscle loss, but had actually built muscle beyond what he had lost. His energy levels were stable throughout the day, he no longer needed naps, and he was enjoying an active retirement. But the most important part of James's recovery was recognizing that his fatigue wasn't just a normal part of aging. It was a warning sign that his body was in crisis. Once he understood this, he was motivated to take action before the muscle loss became irreversible. James's story illustrates an important principle. The energy paradox is often reversible, but it requires recognizing it as a medical issue rather than just an inevitable part of aging. The earlier you catch it, the easier it is to reverse. Now that we've covered the three major warning signs of accelerated muscle loss, functional weakness, nighttime muscle cramps, and the energy paradox, I want to talk about what you can do about them. Because here's the truth. While these warning signs are serious, they're not a death sentence. In most cases, muscle loss can be slowed, stopped, and even reversed with the right interventions. The key is understanding that muscle loss isn't just about exercise. It's about creating a comprehensive lifestyle approach that addresses all the factors that contribute to muscle health. This includes nutrition, sleep, stress management, and yes, physical activity. But it also includes understanding the underlying biological processes that drive muscle loss and working to optimize them. Let's start with nutrition, because this is often the most overlooked factor in muscle health. Many people assume that if they're not trying to build muscle like a bodybuilder, they don't need to worry about protein intake. But this couldn't be further from the truth, especially for older adults. As we age, our bodies become less efficient at using protein to build and maintain muscle tissue. This phenomenon is called anabolic resistance, and it means that older adults need significantly more protein than younger people to maintain the same level of muscle mass. The current recommended daily allowance for protein is 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight, but research shows that older adults need at least 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilogram to prevent muscle loss. To put this in practical terms, a 150-pound person would need about 82 to 109 grams of protein per day to maintain muscle mass. That's significantly more than the 55 grams recommended by the standard guidelines. This higher protein requirement becomes even more important if you're trying to rebuild muscle that has already been lost. But it's not just about total protein intake. It's about the timing and quality of protein consumption. Research has shown that eating protein throughout the day in evenly spaced meals is more effective for muscle maintenance than consuming the same amount of protein in just 1 or 2 large meals. The concept of protein pulse feeding has emerged from recent research. This involves consuming 25 to 30 grams of high-quality protein at each meal, rather than eating most of your protein at dinner. This approach helps maintain elevated levels of amino acids in the bloodstream throughout the day, providing a constant supply of building blocks for muscle protein synthesis. The type of protein also matters significantly. Complete proteins, those that contain all 9 essential amino acids, are more effective for muscle synthesis than incomplete proteins. Animal proteins like meat, fish, eggs, and dairy are complete proteins. But there are also plant-based complete proteins like quinoa, soy, and protein powder blends. One amino acid in particular, leucine, is crucial for triggering muscle protein synthesis. Leucine acts like a switch that turns on the muscle-building process. Foods high in leucine include chicken, fish, eggs, milk, and legumes. Research suggests that older adults need about 5 to 3 grams of leucine per meal to optimally stimulate muscle protein synthesis. This is why many nutritionists recommend that older adults include a high-quality protein source at every meal. A breakfast might include eggs or Greek yogurt, lunch might feature chicken or fish, and dinner could include lean beef or tofu. Snacks can also contribute to protein intake through options like nuts, cheese, or protein smoothies. The timing of protein consumption around exercise is also important. Research shows that consuming protein within 30 minutes to 2 hours after resistance exercise can enhance muscle protein synthesis and improve the muscle-building response to exercise. This doesn't have to be a complicated protein shake. It could be as simple as a glass of milk or a small serving of Greek yogurt. But nutrition is just one piece of the puzzle. Sleep quality is equally important for muscle health, and this is where many people struggle. As we age, sleep patterns naturally change, but poor sleep can accelerate muscle loss significantly. During deep sleep, your body releases growth hormone, which is essential for muscle repair and growth. This hormone is released in pulses during the deepest stages of sleep, particularly during slow-wave sleep. If you're not getting enough deep sleep, your muscles can't recover properly from daily activities, leading to a net loss of muscle tissue over time. The connection between sleep and muscle health is so strong that some researchers consider sleep disruption to be an independent risk factor for sarcopenia. A study published in the Journal of the American Geriatric Society found that adults who slept less than 6 hours per night had a 30% higher risk of developing significant muscle loss compared to those who slept 7 to 8 hours. But it's not just about the quantity of sleep. The quality matters too. Sleep fragmentation, where you wake up frequently during the night, can be just as detrimental as not getting enough total sleep. This is why conditions like sleep apnea, which cause frequent awakening, are associated with accelerated muscle loss. Improving sleep quality often requires a multifaceted approach. This includes maintaining a consistent sleep schedule, going to bed and waking up at the same time every day, even on weekends. Creating a comfortable sleep environment is also crucial. This means keeping your bedroom cool, dark, and quiet. Many older adults benefit from establishing a bedtime routine that signals to their body that it's time to sleep. This might include reading a book, taking a warm bath, or practicing relaxation techniques. Limiting caffeine and alcohol intake, especially in the evening, can also improve sleep quality. Exercise timing can also affect sleep. While regular exercise improves sleep quality, exercising too close to bedtime can be stimulating and make it harder to fall asleep. Most sleep experts recommend finishing exercise at least 3 to 4 hours before bedtime. For those with sleep disorders like sleep apnea, addressing these conditions is crucial for muscle health. Sleep apnea not only disrupts sleep, but also causes intermittent drops in oxygen levels, which can directly impair muscle function and recovery. But perhaps the most important factor in preventing and reversing muscle loss is resistance training. This doesn't mean you need to become a power lifter or spend hours in the gym every day. Even simple resistance exercises performed at home can have profound effects on muscle health. The key principle behind effective resistance training for older adults is progressive overload, gradually increasing the challenge to your muscles over time. This can be done with free weights, resistance bands, weight machines, or even your own body weight. The important thing is consistency and gradual progression. Research has shown that older adults can gain muscle mass and strength at any age with proper resistance training. A landmark study of adults in their 80s and 90s found that participants who engaged in a structured resistance training program for 12 weeks increased their muscle mass by an average of 11% and their strength by 113%. These results were achieved with a relatively simple program that involved exercises like leg presses, chest presses, and lat pull-downs, performed twice a week. The participants started with light weights and gradually increased the resistance as they got stronger. The key was consistency, showing up and challenging their muscles regularly. But resistance training isn't just about building muscle. It also has systemic effects that benefit overall health. It improves bone density, reducing the risk of fractures. It enhances insulin sensitivity, helping to regulate blood sugar levels. It boosts metabolism, making it easier to maintain a healthy weight. And it can even improve cognitive function, as the brain-muscle connection involved in resistance training stimulates neural plasticity. The best resistance training program for preventing muscle loss includes exercises that target all major muscle groups, particularly the large muscles of the legs and core that are essential for functional movement. This includes exercises like squats, lunges, deadlifts, push-ups, rows, and planks, all of which can be modified for different fitness levels. For beginners or those with physical limitations, body weight exercises can be an excellent starting point. Wall push-ups, chair-assisted squats, and modified planks can provide enough stimulus to begin building strength. As strength improves, these exercises can be progressed to more challenging versions. Resistance bands are another excellent tool for older adults. They're inexpensive, portable, and provide variable resistance that can be adjusted to match your strength level. Band exercises can target every major muscle group and are generally easier on the joints than free weights. The frequency of resistance training is also important. While younger adults might benefit from training every day, older adults typically need more recovery time between sessions. Most research supports training each muscle group 2 to 3 times per week, with at least 1 day of rest between sessions, targeting the same muscles. However, it's important to start slowly and progress gradually, especially if you haven't been physically active for a while. The goal isn't to become a competitive athlete. It's to maintain and build the muscle mass you need for independent living. Starting with too much intensity can lead to injury or burnout, both of which can set back your progress. Many older adults benefit from working with a qualified fitness professional, at least initially, to learn proper exercise form and develop a safe, effective program. Physical therapists, certified personal trainers with experience working with older adults, and exercise physiologists can all provide valuable guidance. Another crucial but often overlooked factor in muscle health is stress management. Chronic stress leads to elevated levels of cortisol, a hormone that breaks down muscle tissue and interferes with muscle protein synthesis. This is why people who experience chronic stress often lose muscle mass even if they're eating well and exercising regularly. Cortisol is sometimes called the stress hormone, and while it serves important functions in the body, chronically elevated levels can be devastating to muscle health. Cortisol promotes the breakdown of muscle protein and converts it to glucose, essentially cannibalizing your muscles to provide energy for dealing with stress. Effective stress management can include meditation, which has been shown to reduce cortisol levels and improve overall health. Even just 10 to 15 minutes of daily meditation can have significant benefits. Deep breathing exercises, progressive muscle relaxation, and yoga are also effective stress reduction techniques. Regular social interaction is another important stress management tool. Isolation and loneliness can be significant sources of stress for older adults, and maintaining strong social connections can help reduce cortisol levels and improve overall well-being. Engaging in activities you enjoy can also help manage stress. Whether it's gardening, reading, playing music, or pursuing hobbies, activities that bring joy and satisfaction can help counteract the negative effects of stress on muscle health. Hydration is another simple but important factor in muscle health. Dehydration can impair muscle function and recovery, making it harder to maintain muscle mass. As we age, our thirst sensation decreases, making it easy to become chronically dehydrated without realizing it. The general recommendation is to drink at least 8 glasses of water per day, but individual needs vary based on activity level, climate, and overall health. A good indicator of hydration status is the color of your urine. It should be pale yellow. If it's dark yellow, you're likely not drinking enough water. Proper hydration is particularly important around exercise, as dehydration can impair performance and recovery. Drinking water before, during, and after exercise helps maintain muscle function and supports the recovery process. Finally, it's important to address any underlying health conditions that might be contributing to muscle loss. These can include diabetes, thyroid disorders, chronic inflammation, kidney disease, and certain medications. Working with a healthcare provider to optimize treatment of these conditions can help slow or prevent muscle loss. Some medications are particularly problematic for muscle health. Corticosteroids, commonly prescribed for inflammatory conditions, can accelerate muscle loss. Certain blood pressure medications, particularly diuretics, can affect electrolyte balance and contribute to muscle cramps and weakness. If you're taking medications that might be affecting your muscle health, don't stop taking them without consulting your doctor. Instead, discuss alternatives or ways to minimize the muscle-related side effects. Sometimes adjusting the dose or timing of medications can help reduce their impact on muscle health. The key message here is that muscle loss doesn't have to be inevitable. While the 3 warning signs we've discussed, functional weakness, nighttime muscle cramps, and the energy paradox, are serious, they're also treatable. The earlier you recognize these signs and take action, the better your outcomes will be. The science is clear. Muscle loss is largely preventable and often reversible, even in advanced age. But it requires action. It requires recognizing the warning signs and refusing to accept them as just a normal part of aging. It requires making the commitment to nourish your body properly, stay active, get adequate sleep, and manage stress effectively. Most importantly, it requires understanding that your muscles aren't just for show. They're the foundation of your independence, your energy, and your quality of life. Every step you take, every jar you open, every time you get up from a chair, you're depending on your muscles to make it possible. Remember Robert, Maria, Dorothy, and James, the people whose stories I shared earlier. They all had one thing in common. They didn't accept muscle loss as an inevitable part of aging. They recognized the warning signs, sought help, and took action. And in every case, they were able to regain strength, function, and independence. Robert went from being unable to get out of his chair to helping his son with home improvement projects. The man who once struggled to lift his coffee mug was back to swinging a hammer and carrying lumber. His transformation wasn't just physical, it was psychological. He regained the confidence that comes with knowing your body can be relied upon. Maria went from struggling to cook for 2 people to once again hosting family dinners for 12. Her kitchen became the heart of family gatherings again, filled with the sounds of laughter and the aromas of her famous recipes. But more than that, she regained her identity as the family matriarch, the one who nourishes and cares for others. Dorothy went from being woken by cramps every night to sleeping peacefully through the night. The fear and dread she once felt about going to bed were replaced by the comfortable anticipation of restful sleep. Her days were no longer defined by exhaustion and pain, but by energy and possibility. And James went from feeling exhausted after checking his email to having energy for all the activities he enjoyed. He rediscovered the joy of being active, the satisfaction of being productive, and the pleasure of having enough energy to engage fully with life. Their success wasn't due to some miracle cure or expensive treatment. It was the result of recognizing the warning signs early and taking consistent action to address them. They understood that muscle loss isn't just about looking good, it's about maintaining the strength and independence that make life worth living. The transformation in each of these individuals went beyond just physical improvements. As their muscle mass increased and their strength returned, they experienced improvements in mood, confidence, and overall quality of life. They became more social, more active, and more optimistic about their futures. This psychological component of muscle health is often underestimated. When you feel strong and capable, it affects every aspect of your life. You're more likely to engage in social activities, pursue new interests, and maintain your independence. You're less likely to fear falling or getting hurt, which means you're more likely to stay active and engaged with life. The choice is yours. You can accept muscle loss as inevitable and gradually lose your independence, or you can recognize the warning signs and take action to maintain your strength and vitality for years to come. The people whose stories I've shared chose action, and their lives are better for it. The path forward requires commitment, but it's not as difficult as you might think. You don't need to spend hours in the gym or follow complicated diet plans. You don't need expensive equipment or supplements. What you need is the knowledge to recognize the warning signs and the determination to take action when you see them. Start by honestly assessing your current situation. Are you experiencing any of the warning signs we've discussed? Are you having trouble with activities that used to be easy? Are you waking up with muscle cramps? Are you feeling tired even though you're not doing much? If you answered yes to any of these questions, don't dismiss them as just normal aging. They're warning signs that deserve attention and action. The earlier you address them, the easier they are to reverse. If you're experiencing any of the warning signs we've discussed today, don't wait. Talk to your healthcare provider about your concerns. Be specific about what you're experiencing and how it's affecting your life. Don't let them dismiss your concerns as just normal aging. Advocate for yourself and ask about strategies to maintain and build muscle mass. Consider working with a physical therapist or exercise physiologist to develop a safe and effective exercise program. These professionals can assess your current strength and mobility and design a program that's appropriate for your fitness level and any physical limitations you might have. Consult with a nutritionist to optimize your protein intake and overall nutrition. Many older adults are unknowingly under-eating protein, which can accelerate muscle loss. A nutritionist can help you develop a meal plan that supports muscle health while meeting your other dietary needs. But most importantly, don't accept muscle loss as inevitable. Your muscles have the capacity to grow and strengthen at any age, but only if you give them the stimulus and support they need. The warning signs we've discussed today are your body's way of asking for help. The question is, will you listen? The science is overwhelming. With the right interventions, muscle loss can be slowed, stopped, and reversed at any age. People in their 70s, 80s, and even 90s have successfully built muscle and regained strength they thought was gone forever. But it requires action, consistency, and the refusal to accept weakness as inevitable. The path forward isn't always easy, but it's always worth it. Every day you take action to maintain your muscle health is a day you're investing in your future independence and quality of life. Every resistance exercise you perform, every gram of protein you consume, every good night's sleep you get is a step toward a stronger, more vibrant future. Think about what independence means to you. Maybe it's being able to play with your grandchildren without getting tired. Maybe it's being able to travel and explore new places. Maybe it's simply being able to take care of yourself and your home without needing help from others. Whatever independence means to you, maintaining your muscle mass is crucial to preserving it. Your muscles are the physical foundation that makes everything else possible. Without them, the activities and experiences that give your life meaning become difficult or impossible. But with strong, healthy muscles, the possibilities are endless. You can continue to pursue your passions, engage with your loved ones, and live life on your own terms. You can wake up each morning knowing that your body is an asset, not a limitation. Your muscles have carried you through life so far, through decades of work, play, and daily activities. They've supported you through challenges and celebrations, through the ordinary moments and the extraordinary ones. Now it's time to carry them forward, to give them the support they need to continue supporting you. The warning signs are there for a reason, to alert you to take action before it's too late. Don't ignore them. Don't dismiss them as just a normal part of aging. Recognize them for what they are, a call to action that could change the trajectory of your entire future. The research is clear, the strategies are proven, and the results are achievable. The only question is whether you're ready to take action. Your future self is counting on the decisions you make today. Will you choose strength, independence, and vitality, or will you accept weakness as inevitable? The choice is yours, and the time is now. Your muscles are waiting for you to give them the support they need to continue supporting you. Every day you delay is a day of potential strength lost, but every day you take action is a day of strength gained. Remember, growing older is inevitable, but growing weaker is not. Your muscles are capable of remarkable things at any age, but only if you give them the chance. The warning signs we've discussed today are your opportunity to take action before it's too late. Don't let that opportunity pass you by. If this video has opened your eyes to the warning signs of muscle loss, please share it with someone who might benefit from this information. Your sharing could literally save someone's independence and quality of life. Leave a comment below, sharing your own experiences or concerns about muscle health. Your story might inspire someone else to take action. And don't forget to subscribe for more vital health information that could make the difference between a future of independence and vitality or one of decline and dependence. We're building a community of people who refuse to accept weakness as inevitable, who choose strength and vitality at every age. Together, we can change the narrative about aging. We can show that getting older doesn't have to mean getting weaker. We can demonstrate that with the right knowledge and action, our later years can be our strongest years. Your journey to lifelong strength starts now. Your muscles are ready. Are you?